Welcome to Point and Click, a Telltale podcast. My name is Jordan C. Johnson, and my co-host is...
Adam Razak.
And today we're talking about episode 4 of Walking Dead Season 1, which is, what is this one called? Around Every Corner?
Every Corner, yeah.
Yeah. Guess I should have had that pulled up.
Shame on you.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm kind of in the middle on this one. I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of pluses in this. I think this episode is close to being great. But there are enough things to hold it back that I'm hesitant to call it great.
I think there are some very few great moments. Mm-hmm. It's just, for the most part, I'm very indifferent towards this episode. I think there's a lot of wasted potential with this episode, particularly the stuff that has to do with getting inside of Crawford.
Yeah, we'll get to Crawford when we get there, but that's probably the biggest problem for me.
I really liked the beginning of this episode, and I remember when I first played it a long time ago, I remember thinking this was my least favorite episode, and I still liked it. I thought it was okay. And unlike some of the other episodes we've covered from this season, I pretty much feel the same way about this episode now that I did this years ago, which is a rarity for, I think it's going to be a rarity for this show.
I'm noticing my opinion changing on a lot of this stuff. Yeah, for sure.
But I really like the beginning. I think it has a strong opening with the creepy opening of the bell tower tolling, which I really like.
Yeah, I don't love the opening, actually. I think this episode is a bit of a slow starter for me. I think the bell stuff is fine, I guess. I don't find it like really creepy or anything. I don't know. I think the biggest problem is once you get to the house and all that stuff at the house, which is a real slog.
The whole episode, I think, is just really slow. It's a big setup for the finale, but sure. I don't think as its own episode it has a very satisfying flow to it. Like I think the majority of Telltale's episodes, if you were to break them away from the narrative, the overall arcing narrative, you would have satisfying beginning, middles, and ends. But I think this episode, it's just one big, long middle, and it's leading to something else. But take it away from all that, and it's mostly just very mediocre by itself for me.
Can we? Okay, I want to talk about length in these episodes, because this is something that I've sort of changed my mind on going back to them. Like when these first came out, I was all into... I was like really happy the longer they were. I didn't want them to end, and I wanted to just keep going with it. And I don't know. I don't know if it's maybe because sometimes when I'm playing these, if I feel like I'm just trying to get through them for the episode. I don't think that's what it is, though. With this episode in particular, it just felt really, really long. Especially coming after that Batman episode, which was so quick and to the point and efficient. It's like an hour and a half, banged it out, and you had everything you needed it to have. And this, I just feel like, how long is this episode? It felt like 4 hours or something.
I was gonna say it felt like 3 for me.
It's long.
I had to do it in 2 sittings because the moment that I put it down is when Lee, after he exits the sewer into the fallout shelter, and I kind of was like, it wasn't even night, I wasn't even tired, I was just like, I think I've had enough for today, and I just moved on to something else.
I give them credit because they cram a lot of story movement into this episode. Yeah, from where you start to where you end, a lot goes down. Like there are deaths and introductions and place and the setting changes constantly, and it's a lot to cram in, and I appreciate that. But I still just can't help but feel as I'm playing it, that it just drags on forever. And I think it's not just because the actual playtime is long. It's because a lot of the things that you're doing during that playtime start to feel like chores to me.
Yeah.
Like, and this is again, we've talked about it so much, but this is really one of Telltale's biggest problems is those gameplay sequences. And it's like when you have a game like The Walking Dead that is so narrative and character driven, and really its big hook is its writing and how it pulls you through that story with those people. So when you're stuck doing basically like going back and forth in a school and fetching things for an ungodly amount of time, and not to mention when that fucking sequence glitches and you have to do it like 5 times to get it to work, it's just it really sucks you out of that experience and makes it much less enjoyable than it should be.
It's almost like Telltale wants you to work for the good parts. Which is so, for me, like such an antithesis of what a pleasant, interesting game experience should be. Like every bit should be the good part, no matter how seemingly menial it is. It always should be enjoyable, and I don't like this idea of putting you through something that, I mean, maybe a situation that a character in the story would find frustrating, but you as a player should not feel frustrated. Like,
sure.
every bit, even if it's something generic, it should be exciting for the player. It should be building up tension. It should be like doing something. But there's so much downtime in this episode with just all the different, like, slow, laborious walking you have to do. I hate that this whole season doesn't have a run button, and it was one of the things I'm happy that they included in later series, but I kept thinking that there was one, but when I'd press down on R2, it would just walk the same length, just this I mean, stroll, and I'm like, dude, come on.
They're not like, I think it's one thing to feel frustration, but that frustration should be coming from an organic place where the characters would be feeling it. Like I think what you just said is on point, where you shouldn't be feeling frustrated because you're basically bored that you have to go through these motions. You should be feeling not necessarily frustrated, but okay, let me put it this way. And the worst part for me is when you get to the school and they say, we need fuel, a battery, and medicine. The second they say that, it's like, fuck. This is going to take forever, and it is not going to be interesting at all. And sure enough, it isn't. But it could be, because if you were actually in this situation and you had to go out to like across this lawn to this maintenance shed to get this battery in this place infested by zombies, there's a chance for a really tense set piece there, but we don't get it. We just get these walking fetch quests where there really isn't a lot of tension. It's just kind of go here, get this, bring it back here, hope it doesn't glitch so you can get back over here. Like, it's just a slog. It really doesn't feel tense or involving. It just removes me from the experience. It's like what I said, I think a couple episodes ago about how, well, I hate in movies when you're just stuck sitting through those exposition scenes where characters are just spouting plot information to you to move the story forward. It feels like this is the video game equivalent of that, where you're getting into all these interesting parts with the dialogue and the characters and making decisions and deciding and what to do and where to go and how to act and what your character is going to be like, and then you have to get pulled out of that to grab a gas can and unbury a dog to get a collar, and it's like, oh my god, can we just move on already?
I think particularly with that Crawford part, it's a wasted. I mean, I think the Crawford sequence in general, I think, is full of missed opportunities. But yeah. I think one of the biggest ones is when you're given the choice to go for either, the battery, the fuel, or the medicine. I think that would have been cool if they had created 3 different set pieces out of getting that stuff and have you choose between that and just have the other characters get it automatically. But the fact that it chooses where you have to go, and then once you're done with that, the other characters are too incompetent or too caught up with something else to where you have to come in and rescue them, and then rather than them doing their job, they just sit there and you have to go figure out how to get the medicine, and it just drags it out to this almost unbearable length to where it ruins a lot of my excitement and my enjoyment for parts of this episode that I do really like. It's like what is it all for if I'm just going to be bored most of the time?
Right. I mean, it's just their problem is still with how they're writing these stories. I mean, when you have a branching narrative in a game like this, the possibilities should be endless. You should not be afraid to design sequences that some people will never see. That should be part of the process. That should be just inherent in a branching narrative. But it feels like Telltale, I don't know if it's just that they're in love with what they're writing, or they don't want to spend the time and resources on making that more varied. Mm-hmm. But it's just so frustrating when I feel like you're just being funneled through these sequences when I can see things happen where I'm like, why didn't I get a choice right there? You know what I mean? Like whether it's something as straightforward as an ABC choice as what you just said between getting battery, medicine, or fuel. Why can't you choose that? Why can't you choose who goes with you? Why are you stuck in this funnel? Why, when we first see Molly, are we forced to confront her to push that narrative forward? What if I don't want to? I never wanted to make that call. I would have been fine. Me neither. It made no sense to me. Like, why can't we just wait here? Like, I get that Kenny's a hothead, but you aren't even given really a chance to stop him. You're just like, okay, I guess we're doing this. Why? There's no alternate way we could have gone to Crawford, especially with meeting Vernon and Bree. Why do we need to do that?
I think it's just this season, this series. I hope I don't feel this way about the next series that we cover, but it's like, I think with like Wolf Among Us particularly, where there's quite a few of those episodes do present you with solid ABC choices. Like, you can either go to the butcher shop or go to the thrift shop. You can talk to this person first or go to this person's apartment. And, like, it gives you certain things, and you do end up visiting them either way because that's your character. You're a detective, but it's like it gives you a choice of what to tackle first, and you see the admittedly relatively shallow consequences, but consequences nonetheless in that short-term setting, which I really like from The Wolf Among Us, that they don't do here for reasons that are beyond me. I don't know why they just didn't do it here. There's like number of different choices, not even just in this episode, just multiple times throughout this season, that are just like, why was I not given more of a choice in this situation? And it's frustrating. I think this episode for me is like the most frustrating out of all of them. Like the bits that I don't like about the third episode, I think are like stockpiled onto in this episode. Yeah,
I still like this more than the third episode, to be honest.
Really?
I think the highs are higher, and that train sequence is unforgivable to me. Like nothing in this was as bad as that, unless we're counting glitches, which were a problem.
I would rather go through all of that train bullshit than do the Crawford thing again, especially with the fucking glitches that happen in that.
I gotta say, doesn't it seem like the Crawford stuff would have been more tense and interesting if they weren't all zombies?
Yes. That bothered me about first time around, too.
We've dealt with so many zombies at this point. This was a chance to do something a little different, which, to be fair, I think they kind of rectify a bit as you go forward in the further seasons and in the Michonne game. But it just really feels like, why did we just... Like, it feels almost lazy. Like, why are we just doing zombies when we could be doing something else?
It feels like they could have had another Carver situation here, where the Crawford guy could have been somebody like Carver from season 2, but ran this like totalitarian empire with these people trying to create this perfect race, almost like a Hitler sort of thing, and have, especially if you decide to take Clementine along with you, which
did you, by the way?
I did, because I was like, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to take Clementine. There's no consequences for this.
I wish I would have, because I wound up losing Molly, which doesn't happen if you take Clementine, I found out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. She gets like eaten or whatever.
Yeah, well, she just winds up kind of leaving, basically, because I guess I have bad aim and didn't hit the zombies when they were attacking her, and that's kind of the last I heard of her. But I mean, for me, it just seems like I'm still trying to play it through, as just making the choices I would make, and it just seems like a bad idea to bring a child to Crawford.
See, I mean, I did the first time around, which I will give it credit. Like I said with the second episode of this season, I think might be some unintentional micro narratives that you can form in your head. Like, I like the idea of when Clementine wants to look at the dead dog in the ground, and you're telling Lee, like me as Lee, I personally, I'm like, get back, don't look at this, go buy Krista and Omi.
Really?
Because I want to shelter her from this. Just my like, instinct just kicked in for me.
So, okay, that's interesting, actually. So, are you playing the game in general sheltering her?
No.
Okay.
There are those like moments where I don't want her to see certain stuff, and I mean, it's great that I still feel that after all these years, but it's like that moment I felt bad when like the little text pops up that says like, oh, Clementine is hurt because you sheltered her from this dead dog, and I'm like, oh, well, I forget that happened, so now I feel terrible. But I like that in my head, sort of like thinking about killing at the end of episode 2 with the two brothers. I feel like me progressing in my a positive relationship with Clementine is that I gave her like a high five. I was like, good job, when she like ran into the doggy door and unlocked it, and I didn't scold her for that. And I felt like in that moment, I kind of like realized, okay, this is a girl that I should not be sheltering. I should let her go along with the things that we do, because this will teach her more as to like what this world is really like, and to self-sustain.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it for me is just in general in life, I just really don't like the idea of sheltering kids and don't really believe in it in the first place. So, let alone in a world where, if she's surrounded by undead monsters that will kill her if she's not able to protect herself or handle it. So,
but I think it's a natural transition that you can get from this story. Maybe not intentional from Telltale, but it's a narrative that you can create yourself, which I think is really cool.
And what narrative? What do you mean?
Like the narrative of little situation of you hurting Clementine because you didn't trust her enough that she could handle seeing the image of a dead dog. But then later on, you're giving her opportunities to like a soul, not solely depend on herself, but like putting her in more danger because you trust that she will listen to you and she will have your back. Like creating that more positive relationship, almost like as an apology for telling her, get back from this dead dog. Like, but you can handle, I give you credit for going in the doggy door and like going into this, for what we know, could be infested house, and then shooting the zombie to save whatever the hell her name is,
Molly,
yeah, in Crawford. But it's things like that just from that little moment of telling her to get back, and then her being hurt, I almost felt like it was like a positive relationship, a positive parental relationship with Clementine, that she can handle more stuff later on in this episode.
Sure.
Which I think is really cool.
Can I walk something back that I said in the previous episode to agree with you?
Okay.
Fuck Ben.
Yes!
Fuck
Thank
Ben.
You. Thank you.
That fucking piece of shit. I was done by the end. Yep. Are you like, how many fucking horrible decisions can that guy make?
Yep.
For them, I was still on board with him, and the second I lost it was when he ran away from Clementine.
Yeah.
Fuck you. If that is your reaction, indefensible. Fuck that shit.
I wanted to either abandon him or kill him multiple times throughout this episode, and even in the previous episode. And I was like, I'm done with you the second that you're like, oh, I made a mistake, and I want to throw you off this train. Yeah. And now I particularly want to kill you in some fashion when you abandon Clementine, you remove the axe from the door, and then you hang out with drunk Kenny to let Clementine play in the yard.
Yeah. Well, okay. There are some of the things I could forgive somewhat. I could justify somewhat. Taking the axe from the door is horrible, but to be fair, it is a mistake, and it was an extremely stupid one that he should have realized but didn't, and he wound up getting people killed. Which, okay, still a mistake, kind of like how the making the deal with the bandits. He had good intentions, he's just an idiot. You know what I mean? And it's like, with that, it's like, okay, I can somewhat try to forgive you for that. The bandits thing I could forgive you. You had good intentions, you just didn't know what you were doing, you're naive. The axe is a little worse. Like, that's just stupidity, and it's to the point where people are dying because you are so stupid.
Yeah.
And his whole giving me attitude because I'm starting to call him out and like getting drunk and stuff. Yeah. I'm like, you better fucking watch it because like you're on thin ice already. But the leaving Clementine to save himself is indefensible. There's no excuse for that. And like you could make the whole argument of well, you're under pressure and you don't know how people are going to react. Okay, I will just say like the one thing I kept thinking of when I was watching that scene. There was this at one point in real life. I was like walking in Death Valley with my little brother who was like 4 years old. We were walking around and I heard a rattlesnake rattle and I looked down and there was a rattlesnake like right between my legs and my brother was right next to me. To me, the equivalent of what Ben would do would be I would just run away and leave my little brother to fend with him for himself with that rattlesnake. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but I didn't do that. I picked him up and grabbed him and ran away with him. Like, fuck you. If you leave your little brother to sit there with that rattlesnake and run away to save yourself, fuck you. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Like in the previous episode, that Lee just keeps on taking it. Just even after leaving Clementine, he's just like, you better watch your ass, Ben. You better not fuck up again. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Get rid of him now.
Yes. This is another problem, which we've talked about before. But the way Lee reacts to certain things and feeling like you don't have a say in how he reacts to those things.
Yeah.
I think the dealing with Ben is one. Dealing with Kenny is another. And those are more like, why can't I be harsher? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the one that stood out the most for me was dealing with Vernon when he says that he suggests that he can take Clementine to keep her safe. Mm-hmm. Your reaction, you were given 3 options of dialogue on that besides silence, which one is basically, I need to think about this. Mm-hmm. 2 is you're right. And 3 is, fuck you, how dare you even ask me that? It's like, shouldn't there be a middle ground here where I can be like, I understand what you're saying, but I am not going to do that? Why is the only way for me to turn him down to be like, pin him against a wall and tell him I'm going to kill him if he even suggests this again? I was like, where did this reaction come from? It's very bizarre.
It's one of the more extreme examples I've seen of, like, it's like such black and white choices that would not reflect any form of reality or it makes no room for any kind of a compromised thought.
Yeah, it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Like, how, I mean, it seems obvious he's just trying to give an option so you can protect her because he cares about her safety. Why do you have to lose your shit?
It's just one of those moments where I was like, I'm not going to choose the fuck you action. I'm just going to say, I'll need to think about it because I didn't want to say yes. I didn't want to pin him against a wall and threaten to kill him. Right. I don't want to say silent either. So I was just like, okay, well, I'll think about it. I'm going to say no, but I'm going to think about it.
It seems like it'd be really easy to have an in-between option there. I don't know why they didn't.
I had to fit that silent option in there anyway. Somewhere.
So stupid.
Yeah. I really like that. Like, even as somebody who was very affected by the scene with Duck's death and conscious suicide, I think now I'm more affected by the scene with the zombie kid.
Yeah, that was worse.
I really, really like that scene as just... I like how just it's very just somber and quiet.
It's disturbing.
Yeah, it's like... it's just hard to stomach the thought of this kid locked in a basement for so long, where he like starves to death, and then it's just.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that is the difference. What makes this worse for me is the murder suicide thing is just sort of a culmination of unfortunate events.
It's a coup de grace.
Yeah, and her, Katja killing herself is sad, but you understand why she did it.
Sure.
And Duck dying and having to be shot is what it is. It's just unfortunate and it's sad. But this is more not just that. First of all, it's a disturbing visual. This completely, emaciated, like dead kid who's shambling around on these like rattling bones that he can't even stand up on.
Yeah.
And just like only like wearing underwear, and you have him. I think the big difference with this scene is that it creates a narrative.
Yeah.
It's not just a series of unfortunate events that led to this. It's now, as you're watching this like grotesque, horrible ghoul like shamble around in agony, you're being in this mind, you're creating this narrative and this image of a kid alone, locked in an attic, trying to survive, terrified, without his parents or anyone there, and he just stays there until he starves to death on his own. I mean, that's fucking horrible. It's incredibly disturbing and sad. Like way worse than the murder-suicide, I think.
I like also how when Lee buries him, you have to press the button every time to dig up dirt and throw it into the ground. It's like a little thing that brings you more personally into the moment. Like you almost feel like you are digging the grave yourself and burying this kid, which is I think it's great. I don't like that it's kind of ruined a little bit by a sort of jump scare with the guy, which
did get me, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it got me the first time, but I don't like how this moment where it's very quiet and somber, and then it just goes, there's a guy, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Who was that guy?
That's the guy
from the next episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
The James Woods looking guy.
That's right. Okay. I will say that episode, that moment was disturbing, but there's only really one moment in this episode that got me a little emotional, and it's the very end after you're bitten, which of course I knew was coming, but the way, the sort of finality with you and Kenny having that little last interaction on the street before you leave, where basically Kenny just realizes, well, you're gonna die, and you're realizing, well, I'm gonna die. Like it's just over. That's it, right there.
Yeah.
And it's just that you can feel that after all of this effort, this is how it's gonna end, and that's it. Yeah.
It's, I mean, it makes it worse when like Lee, even he, when you almost like breathe in his realization that like, oh no, this is not happening.
The first time I played it was a huge shock too.
I was actually spoiled by that moment before I played it, so I knew what was going to happen. I didn't know how it would end, but I knew he gets bit. I knew he got bitten, and I'm like, oh, well, I knew that moment, but it still was like really excellent how like the realization, this horrifying realization, is just, it's so palpable, so good.
Let's see, are there any other moments like key sequences we're forgetting?
Do you want to talk about the big glitch with Crawford?
Yeah, tell me what happened with you first.
So mine was, I went in and did the whole thing where you walk up to the zombie and stab it in the face with the axe, and then you run into Crawford. But I did not remember the exact timing of the exact sequences of events. So when I went through it, hit the zombie with the axe, run inside. Then it immediately cut to Lee standing in the hallway, and I could control him. And I was like, I thought nothing of it because I didn't remember that any like big cutscene had happened before. I was like, okay, so I'm just gonna walk, and then I see Molly. I go over to what the hell, Krista and Vernon, and they're at the medical station. Okay, can't do anything there. I walk over and I see Molly exit out the building. All right, walk over. The scene, it cuts, and it starts me like right back at the beginning when you're in the sewer, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like what?
Yes.
What just happened? So and then it wouldn't even let me open the sewer lid.
Yes.
So I had to restart the game, go from that when you're like running in, and then it triggers the long cutscene where everyone's figuring out where to go and what to get, and I was just in this like state of like just not shock, but more like confusion. like what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this
Now,
from a Telltale game, even as glitchy as they can get.
Now, is that where the glitch ended for you?
That's where the glitch thankfully ended for me, but I was on my toes the whole time, waiting for it to fuck up again.
Got worse for me.
Oh no.
That was step one. And I did the same thing. That one, fortunately, I didn't have to restart there. Once I went outside, it did loop me right back to the sewer again, but I was able to go through that normally.
Okay.
But the problem came when you go into the nurse's station, you watch the first tape, and then you go out to get the other tapes. I noticed something weird where every time I would go out into the hallway in the school, I would always start in the same place, which is that same place that loops you to in the first glitch when it skips the cutscene. And every time I would go out, I would get everything, I would do everything. When I came back in, there's no button prompt to open the nurse's station. Mm-hmm. So you can't progress. It took me 3 times playing through that chapter before I found a fix, because apparently this has happened to other people.
That's unacceptable.
Yes. So I wasted like half an hour on this fucking little stretch.
That is fucking ridiculous.
Yes. And you know, the only way you can fix it, you can like restart, reload, whatever, it doesn't matter. The only way to do it is to go back to the main menu and instead of doing continue, hitting rewind and starting the chapter over.
What?
Manually. It's the only way to fix it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've heard, luckily it worked for me right away. I've heard some people have to do that step more than once. Yeah. Like that, talk about taking you out of a game. I mean, like you know what? I think to some degree I can overlook some of the like the slow loading and the audio glitches, whatever. Like I feel like the game itself still comes through despite those things. This glitch is way more egregious because you are it is completely taking you out of that experience, making you really boringly trudge through that same little stretch, and all that stretch is a fetch quest, like over and over and over, and it's like, are you serious? How much time do I have to waste on this to get through this episode?
I'm in shock.
Yeah.
That is ludicrous.
And how old is this game? How has this not been fixed?
Yeah, I think the disc came out. I don't even remember that glitch in the PS3 version.
Yeah, me neither. I never had that problem in the PS3 version.
Let me actually look up when Walking Dead. Let me see.
It's been years. Remember the point is, it's been way too long.
2 years since the PS4. Has it been 2? I think it's been 2 years since at least the PS4 version.
Yeah.
I don't know, but wow, that's.
The point is,
wow.
If it goes over 6 months with that glitch intact, there's a problem. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, 2 years. It will be 2 years in 3 days.
How has that not been patched? That's crazy.
I have no idea. I mean, Telltale's just moved on to other stuff, and I guess they just don't give a fuck about their new like port versions of their older games. They just throw them out there, and they're like, "Well, here you go." Which, ugh.
So I guess if we're gonna talk some decisions, I probably don't even need to ask you what you did with Ben.
Drop that motherfucker from the bed. Broke his legs, and I laughed my ass off when I saw him getting eaten. I did not.
I'll give him some credit for trying to redeem himself by telling you to drop him.
Oh, fuck him.
But yeah, I mean, it's not that difficult, especially when you know someone has to get left behind. I mean, that motherfucker's not going to be the one on the boat either way.
If he wanted to redeem himself, he should have thrown himself from that train in the last fucking episode.
See, again, I still can't get on board with that. I'm still fine with him up until he runs away from Clementine.
That's when I'm like, I knew it. I knew I should have thrown him off the train, but no.
You know what? The second it happened this episode, I was like, yeah, Adam was right.
Yeah.
This guy is a bitch. Fuck this guy.
Yeah. Like when I saw him like run away from Clementine, I was like, there's no way Jordan's not gonna be like, fuck this guy. There's no way.
That was.
I'll be shocked if he doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh boy. But so how did you react when you're first like meeting Vernon? Were you very like hostile, or were you more like oh, hey guys, let's take it easy? Because I'd forgotten that Vernon was even in this episode.
Mm-hmm. I was completely just like calm, apologetic, honest, straightforward.
Yeah,
I have no problem with any of them.
Same here. But I didn't really feel anything when Bree dies. I was just like, yeah, you died. Whatever.
There's not a lot there.
Yeah, she's just not a very. I don't even really think Vernon is a particularly compelling character. Like I mean, he's just there. Like all those people, the survivors from Crawford, even Molly. Like I think Molly is just a really milquetoast version of Jane from season 2.
Yeah, I would agree.
I
think all the characters you meet in this episode are pretty forgettable.
They're like Molly could have been interesting, and I know they try to give her that little bit of, I guess, character development where she has sex with the doctor to keep her sister alive, but it's like, I don't know. I was just like, yeah, that doesn't do anything for me.
You know what? Let's talk a little bit about Crawford, and the whole society that they set up in Crawford. Well, first of all, the introduction of the zombie wall with the zombies on spits.
That's great.
Or spikes, I should say. Which is a great introduction. Really unsettling, disgusting. Really makes you question. Like, you kind of have an idea right away what this group is probably like. That said, they paint Crawford as this completely horrible, place.
Yeah.
I gotta say, kind of made sense to me. I was kind of on their side for a lot of this stuff. I mean, I think the whole thing with the doctor is obviously a complete fucking scumbag.
Sure.
But it seems a little unfair for him to be the representative of the rules of Crawford. I think the whole idea that in this, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think the rationale behind no children or sick is pretty straightforward and fair, I think, especially when it seems like the people are all completely aware of those rules when they're choosing to live there. And it doesn't sound like they have to stay. They're not forcing them to stay.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like the whole thing when the woman's like, "You're pregnant, we have to do the abortion." And she's like, "No, please don't tell nobody." I'm like, what? I mean, no. Why don't you, if you don't want it, then leave. I mean, either do the procedure or leave. Why do you freak out and kill the guy, which seems really unfair?
Yeah.
I felt no sympathy for that character. And a lot of the stuff they were saying about it just seems like they have the rules and you know the rules. Why should I feel bad that you're trying to cheat the rules? And you're basically endangering them for selfish reasons. It doesn't really seem like I don't really see why I should be on their side.
I think I might have felt that way about Crawford if we had actually seen in person what Crawford was like, what their everyday life, everyday order is life.
Sure. Which may have been horrible, but we don't know that.
Yeah, but it's you have to just take their word for it from videos and things that the characters say, and it just paints this very muddled, one-sided view of Crawford.
They make it sound like they make it sound like they're fascist monsters, but they just sound pragmatic.
Yeah.
I mean, that now again, talk about a missed opportunity. How much worse thing would it have been if you got into that group and then had to make decisions about okay, let's say you get integrated into that world and they're actually, for the most part, seems like a really safe and good place to stay, but you can't keep Clementine there. How do you handle that decision? What winds up happening with that? Is there possible blowback? Does the whole thing wind up going to shit and a big, horrible, violent set piece ensues? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of potential there that they just discarded by having everybody dead.
It just, like you said, it feels very lazy and plain, just with everything that happens at Crawford. It's like they didn't have the budget to make a bunch of new character models, so they just threw in the plot about it's zombies that are at Crawford. But I guess thematically it's justified that it's not that I'm saying I agree with it, but their form of trying to justify it is that this message of like your luck eventually runs out. That a society, I guess, with so many strict rules will eventually like cave in on itself with like the death of the doctor starting supposedly starting the zombie outbreak within Crawford. But then again, it's like, yeah, but I just don't feel anything regarding Crawford. It's just a place to me that's just another series of corridors that are filled with zombies I have to run away from or shoot. And right. I'm as much as I like the portrayal of zombies in this series, this could have been something really different, and it wasn't. And I think that is just a big shame.
Like you said, I mean, in order for this kind of situation to work, you have to feel it. You have to believe what they're telling you. But this is a lot of tell and not a lot of show.
Yeah.
Which does not create emotional involvement at all.
Yeah, it's just more zombies.
More zombies. How about that weird fucking moment when you're going to get the tape from the doctor and the zombie attacks you in the shed and like a TV just falls on his head?
Yeah.
What the fuck was that? Was that supposed to be like funny? What was that?
I guess that was just luck. I don't know really. I don't really know how to explain that. It was just
they played it like it was supposed to be funny or something. Like you think this is gonna be this big thing, and then the zombie just gets killed, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess, but it seems like that could have been better conveyed.
I thought it was Molly at first that dropped the TV.
Yeah.
But then you realize that, oh wait, no, that was just played for laughs, I guess.
Yeah, maybe if we saw the thing that fell on it before it did, like it just was kind of weird. I was like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. It's like they like the Crawford thing, they just didn't want to animate another action scene, so they're just like, fuck it, drop a TV on the thing. Or whatever the hell it was. Just then kill it.
Yeah. And then you get to walk really, really, really slowly up to the doctor.
Yeah. And then when zombies are coming through the door, you gotta walk really, really slowly to drop the car. You gotta walk really, really slowly to cut the oxygen thing, and it's like no, I would be running. I'd be bolting my ass through that junkyard to get where I need to go and not get eaten.
And what a great way to create a sense of urgency too, is to let you run through that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe have a little like music amping that up, or do that little thing where they make the corners of the screen start turning red to give you some sense of you're in trouble, you better move.
Yeah.
But instead you just kind of crawl along over to the pump.
And talk about the shooting. Jesus Christ, the shooting in this game is awful.
Yeah,
I hated
it really is.
That shotgun shit at the end. Like I was just I was shooting the zombie in the head when in that moment where Molly could possibly, I guess, get injured by a zombie if Clementine isn't there to shoot the zombie, and I was shooting it, and I'm like, why aren't you registering a hit? And it's like, no, but Clementine has to kill it, and I'm like, no, I perfectly lined up the zombie and I shot it. So that just it's like a little thing like that just takes me out of the game.
Right. Or even worse, you could do that same thing and then not hit anything and have Clementine not there, which was just weird. I was like, what the fuck? I shot that zombie like 3 times, and I probably shot Molly at least once.
Yeah.
And actually, the first time I did it, I've made a point to say like I never regret decisions or anything that happens in these games. But I feel like okay. So when the first time that set piece came along, I was kind of half paying attention because I was dealing with I was just getting over dealing with the whole glitch thing, and I kind of just fired and hit Molly on accident. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna replay that because I'm not happy with shooting Molly by not paying attention.
Oh, man. Another quick thing that I remembered is I hate that when you have to find the quarter, you can't just open the cash register. You have to go to the thing that, the sightseeing thing, and it's like you have to walk to that, and then you have to slowly walk to the cash register, and then you have to slowly walk over to the fucking newspaper machine to hit that and get the quarter out, and it's
so
like
boring.
It's just
why do they put stuff? If I were like a Telltale writer, the second anybody pitched something where you have to, if they say the words you have to find, I'd be like, shut up. No, we're not doing that. I don't want to have to find anything. No, it's bullshit. Like those sequences are so boring and uninteresting.
I would have liked to have been in the writer's room when they were having these roundtable discussions. Just stand in the corner with like a rolled up newspaper, and anytime they talk about walking to get something or a puzzle, just walk up and hit them on the head and be like, no, don't do that. Think of something else.
And I'm hoping, from what I remember, it seems like they got a bit better about this.
Oh yeah, they did.
Feature thing, like in episode like season 2, I don't remember that much of this.
It's nowhere near as bad in that as it is. Even the moments where you have to walk, it's moments that are building dread. So there is a purpose to the majority of them.
Yeah, except for the first episode of season 2, but whatever. We'll get to that soon.
Yeah. So, what would your ranking? Or unless you wanted to talk about something else, or did you want to?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. So, what would your ranking be?
All right. So my updated top 5. I would put this episode at number 5.
Oh.
Then number 4, episode 1 of Batman. Number 3, episode 1 of Walking Dead. Number 2, episode 2 of Walking Dead, and number 1, episode 2 of Batman.
I would put. So I'm going to demote Long Road Ahead. Demoting that. That's no longer my number 4. So this doesn't even come into the top 5. This episode.
Yeah.
For me, this is probably like the worst episode we've covered so far. It's the one. I'd rather. It's just so mediocre to me for the most part, and I feel this way. I feel about this episode the same way I feel about the most of like the Minecraft episodes. I'm just so indifferent. Like I watch them and it just goes through my head and I just don't think about it anymore. Aside from maybe like 1 or 2 moments. Aside from like the zombie kid part and Ben dying, I don't really think much of anything about this episode. It's just one big blur in my head. So that is not even going to be in the top 5. So number 5 would be A New Day, season 1 of episode 1, season 1, and then it's going to be Long Road Ahead, which is episode 3, and then Batman episode 1, and then Batman episode 2, and then Walking Dead episode 2, which I think is great.
Mostly great. I still feel like I don't know. I don't know if it was at the time this came out because it was so different than anything out there, and I was so excited by the possibilities of it and by the highs of it that I just, didn't pay attention to the lows. But I'm finding myself much less impressed this time around.
Well, that's the problem with Telltale, I think, in general. It's like their greatest strength is that they work best on first impressions.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's like even preparing for like the shows that we do, like going through these episodes, there is always that sense of like even in the great ones, there's always this sense of like a very minor fatigue. Like I know what's going to happen, and I know a lot of these choices aren't going to matter in the end. It's just, do they work on like an interpersonal level, which some of them do very well, but the majority of them are just roads that lead to the same thing.
Sure. And to be fair, and I don't even necessarily think it's just that you know what's going to happen and it feels weightless at a certain point, because I know the Mass Effect trilogy like the back of my hand. Like those games are familiar to the extreme to me, but every time I play them, which is often, I never feel that fatigue or that boredom or that lack of interest. Like the gameplay is solid, the emotions are still solid, the characters and writing is all still solid. Rarely do you feel that sense of funneling like we're talking about, and that sense of pointlessness outside of like the ending of the third game. But it's just it never has it, and I think part of it is just that the gameplay rarely feels boring like this. It really rarely feels like you're just going through these plot motions. You know what I mean? Like the gameplay is fun in addition to the storytelling.
I mean, I don't want to get too much into Mass Effect, but it's like I agree with you when it comes to 2 and 3, but I can't go through 1 again. I don't like the gameplay at all in 1. I think the story is great. The writing is terrific. It's a lot like like the first Dragon Age for me, where I hate the gameplay
Well,
so
let's
much.
not
That it's like
let's not get crazy. Like that first Dragon Age is unplayable at this point.
It's not as bad as Mass Effect
Yeah.
is not as bad as that, but I don't like. For me at least, I feel like the first Mass Effect is just so clumsy and just odd to control.
It's clunky. It's a clunky game to control, but
Yeah.
I think it has its charms. I don't think it's any. I don't find it obnoxious to play through like I find some of the stuff in Walking Dead. Like I think relatively compared to the smoothness of the next two, it's more pronounced. But I don't think the gameplay is bad on its own.
For me, it's close to being bad because I just
That's fair.
And I tried going through Mass Effect again, but it's like I got to the point where you're in the Citadel, and then there's like all these like shootouts that happen, and I'm kind of like, okay, well, I just put it down and moved on to something else,
Well,
and I haven't really touched it since then. So
And to be fair, with that first Mass Effect, I think a lot of it is dependent on leveling up. Like the combat becomes a lot more fun when you once you reach a certain level and it's not as annoying and difficult. But yeah, I mean, I still don't think any of it approaches just force walking to pick up items and go back to a room.
Oh, sure.
That, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's antiquated, but it's a game built around gameplay as much as it's built around the decisions and everything. Where I feel like with Telltale, which is a limitation, I'm sure, of the budget and the type of game they're making, but it seems like they can't really build it around gameplay in that way.
Yeah.
It's really just based around the narrative, and I think which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is like with these early ones, it's like they don't want to accept that. They're still sort of in this puzzle-based mentality. They're still trying to make it a playable game. When it's really like, look, the only reason people are into this is because this is essentially an interactive TV show. Like, it's a serialized drama that you can be a part of and affect and change and shape.
Oh, sure.
So that's its strength. So play to that. Stop wasting time with this horrible gameplay that no one is here for in the first place, and just focus on what you're doing well and get to that. And stop wasting time. I mean, Mass Effect is as much a shooter as it is an RPG.
Of course. But
Anyway, that's that.
well, let's hope. I hope Andromeda is good, despite my mostly like soured feeling I have about Mass Effect now. But I hope it redeems itself with.
Oh, Andromeda's going to be amazing. Have you seen that fucking video?
Oh,
It's
of course.
Gonna be great.
Whenever they release it in like 50 million years.
They're saying rumor is March now.
No, it's not. It's
That's
the rumor,
rumor.
but they're gonna delay it. I know that.
I don't know. We'll see. It looks like they're pretty close.
It looks solid. It looks solid from the gameplay that they've shown. I just want to know what it's about.
I'm sure it'll be great. I have very little doubts at this point.
I mean, I get why people like Bioware, but I'm one of those people that just doesn't understand the acclaim behind like the majority of Bioware stuff. Like even like the newer Dragon Age, which I think is crappy.
I like the newer Dragon Age. I have my issues. I guess I can't play the first one. That antiquated gameplay is
awful.
just it's too much. The turn-based combat, the not having a voice as the protagonist is like I can't do this. But I enjoyed most. I never finished the second one, but I had fun with it for the most part. And I did finish Inquisition. I thought I don't think it's anywhere near Mass Effect, but I still think it's a solid, enjoyable game, which I may revisit someday.
I got through like the first like 4 hours of it, and I was just so bored during.
You barely started.
I was just so, but like you said, like, do I want to get through another 12 hours of possible boredom to get to something I possibly could like?
Sure.
I'm just
And that's
like, eh.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like I feel you on that because that's how I feel about TV shows where so many people will be like, oh, this show's great, and you'll like watch an episode and be like, that was horrible.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, well it doesn't get good till like halfway through season 2. But like, motherfucker, I am not wasting like 10 hours to get to the good stuff. Are you insane?
Yeah,
no way.
I actually just had like one of my old coworkers tell me like, oh, if no one likes the first season of The Walking Dead, if you just get through that, it gets better. And I'm like, ugh.
Okay,
No.
First of all, the first season of The Walking Dead is the only good one. But yeah, no, don't. No, I do not listen to people when they say that stuff. It's like no. Do you real? It's like they say that like it's nothing. Like, oh, it's just the first season. It's like,
Yeah.
Do you realize how fucking long a season of television is? That's insane.
I don't have time for that shit.
Yeah, fuck that.
So anyway, Jordan, where can people find you?
Shit. At @5th_opinion on Twitter, and yeah, that's good enough.
Also, the official Bioware podcast.
Yeah, that one that I run.
Yeah. And you can find me at Razorblade Mango. Yeah. Do my stuff.
All right.
So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Look at our Twitter page. Subscribe to YouTube. All that good stuff.
What's the Twitter handle? We should probably say that.
Damn it! I always need to.
It's at a Telltale Pod, right?
Yes.
All right, there you go.
At a Telltale Pod. Yeah.
Okay. See ya.
See you later.